This is day 2 of my coding journey for 100 days of Swift, so let's dive on in. Now, from what I've learned on day 2, it seems like it's complex only because this is what's used for everything we use when it comes to technology, right? How our Instagram is set up, how our bank accounts are set up, how just essentially everything we use like technology wise, this is what's happening like in the back end, like how our information is stored essentially. So even though right now it's a little bit heavy for the information as such, one time for one day for an hour, it's still pretty good that I'm learning this off rip. So arrays, I would say they are a container that holds a list of information. So it could be anything per se, numbers, names, probably dictionaries. We'll get to that later. But just essentially a list of things that you can organize and have duplicates of. So if we were to check here, Dragon Ball Z fan, you already know because of the do-rag. But yes, we got a bunch of names here, the Z Fighters, right? But then when you scroll down here, this is where you actually make the array. You give it a constant, the name, Z Fighters, and then the list of all the variables. So in this case, I just put every Z Fighter on here. And then I could use string interpolation to print out all of the Z Fighters in the list. If you see here in my output here, but what if you want a specific person in that array? You would usually just call it out based off of this, like so indexing. So that's what arrays do. They find things within the list using indexing. They start off at 0, since that's just how the computer reads it as, and then goes it moving forward. So essentially how we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they do it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Goku's the first position, and the first position is 0. But let's see what happens when we try to just print it out without indexing it. See, even here it says missing argument of parameter #1 in subscript. So I think that means I have to put a number in there to find a specific item in that list. And then here I'm doing the same thing what I did before, annotating it. So giving it a type before I put values in the array. So integers, bunch of numbers, so they're power levels, and then is saying, basically saying, are they sayings or not? A Boolean, true, true, false. So if you watch the show, Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Trunks, they are saying, so that's why I did that Boolean to like let them know, hey, are they a saying, yes or no? Simple like that. Next up are sets. Now sets, I would say in my own words, they are an unorganized list and a way that you could find things quickly. So for example, the best time you would use sets would be finding a list of usernames on social media, right? You don't need to have it organized in order for you to get that list. Plus, there are no duplicate usernames. Everything's unique. Sets are very unique. They're not going to have more than one. So if we take a look here, let me just comment this out. Scroll down. So let key colors. So key just means a type of energy. So I just put key colors. Since Dragon Ball Z, they have different types of key. So white, blue, red, yellow, based off of their emotions. And then here, I try to do a duplicate. So yellow and red based off of other key colors. But then when I printed it out, it still gave me the same 4. But see how it's like unorganized, and then sometimes it gives me a random order. Don't know why it does that, but it just does. Now tulips, I don't know why they call it tulips, but I would say tulips can be used for when you're trying to create a group of things, or like when you are trying to, what's the best word I'm looking for? Hold more than one value, I would say, right? Like several values. And the way to call the information, you basically use the variable's name and then whatever name you give it inside of the tulip. Now dictionaries, I would say dictionaries are kind of self-explanatory based off of how I got it. You look through the dictionary, you find the word, and you get the definition. Simple, straight like that. So in this case, how I did it and how I kind of conceptualized it, where is the dictionary? Oh, quick thing before I get into dictionaries, tulips can be used for like a great way to have related values be with each other. So from my understanding, tulips are kind of used for like when you're getting an address of something, right? So Google Maps, when you click on the annotation, you get the building number, the street, the city, the zip code, everything within that annotation. So for example, I put Dr. Strange's address, basically he lives in New York, and I put that there. Now, as far as dictionaries go, like how I said before, you get the word, then the definition, then that's how you call it out. So like, for example, if you played Pokemon before, it's kind of pretty much the same. So dictionary can be seen as like a Pokédex, and then the Pokédex entry, you're trying to find the number, which is like the number of the Pokemon, and then the definition would essentially be the Pokemon itself. As I'm scrolling down, the way to access it is kind of the same as arrays in a sense, but in this case, you are calling it based off of what's actually inside and not the indexes themselves, because they have different, I would say, properties and values inside. And yes, so when it comes to creating dictionaries, you don't always have to create them right off the bat. You can create a empty dictionary and then give it values later on. Now, enums. Enums were very tricky for me. It kind of just seemed weird at first. The enumerations where we group things that are related to each other. So I'm gonna just bring up another reference from Pokemon because it just made sense to me that way. So for example, right, imagine if you were creating, Pokemon itself and you wanted to give each Pokemon a certain type. So here I put Pichu, Pichu type electric, Trico type grass, Vulpix type fire. So it's like I set up all these types, but doing it this way seems very repetitive and can lead to a lot of mistakes, because what if I had other fire types, other grass types, other electric types, and I misspelled something along the way of creating every single Pokemon? So there has to be an easier way for me to create this, so that way there's no mistakes, easier to read, and it's easier to follow. So that's where the enum comes in. You create the groups based off of the specific types instead of just doing it by hand. So you give it the name, then you give it the cases, right? The cases, in a sense, is like the all different types you can have. So I put fire, water, grass, and electric. And then in this case now, I can actually do it where it's like, let Pikachu type equal Pokemon electric, fire for Charizard, and Lapras for water. So see how cleaner this looks compared to just writing it up there, and see how I misspelled fire? So imagine if I was trying to make Charizard another fire type. That would have made it so that way there's two classes of fire types, even though they all should be under one category. I know that they're all Pokemon, but they each should be categorized in its own special type, which is why we have enums. But yeah, that's all I've learned so far. I would say the most trickiest ones are enums and dictionaries, mainly because there's a lot you can do with that, and I'm just wondering to see how far can I go, because it's like I said, when it comes to these complex data types, they are used in our everyday applications. So there's probably a whole lot we can do with this type of stuff. I just don't know yet, but this is a good foundation so far.